All right, shalom, shalom. I'm going to start off this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops, the great millstone that rule while they teach while I learn this truth 100% according to the Bible. I also want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 scattered abroad, the four corners of the earth, and shalom to you, Akwaf, which are you sisters that are sincere in your children. Shalom. And then today's video is going to be building off of this video that was posted where it says a disc in the sky, a new UAP, which is what the government calls a, unidentified aerial phenomenon video tied to military, right? So, these are basically the chariots of the Lord, that it tells us about, they're called different things throughout the scriptures. They're called clouds. They're called the chariots of Israel, as it tells us in the book of 2 Kings chapter 2. And I'm actually get that, matter of fact, before I even, get into the video and allow it to play. But this is 2 Kings chapter 2. Right. And I'm going to start at verse 11. And it said, and it came to pass as they still went on and talked that, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire. Right. Which is what these people, ignorantly call UFOs, which are the chariots of Israel, man. Right. Those are the vehicles that our brothers on the right hand side, the angels are inhabiting, man. Right. But the government, they know what they are deep down. They're just not going to tell the people what they are. They know that ultimately the Lord, who they ignorantly call Jesus Christ, and his angels are in those chariots, man. Right. And they know that these chariots are throughout all the earth, flying through military bases, blending in with certain objects. They're able to, defy gravity and all the different types of things that it is that Esau is stunned of. He's ultimately, afraid, really, because he know ultimately that these things in which it is, he know that they're heavenly, like they don't come from this earth, man. The way that they're able to move and, teleport in and out of from different dimensions and, things of that nature that they do. This devil knows that ultimately it's the Lord, man, that it's a higher power that he's ultimately dealing with, but he's not going to tell the people that, of course, So it says, and horses of fire and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. So Elijah was beamed up, and what people ignorantly call UFOs, right? And this is verse 12. The point, it said, and Elisha saw it and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel, right? And the horsemen thereof, and he saw him no more. And he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces, right? So that's basically what these things are, that these people are, ultimately seeing, man. They're the chariots of Israel, right? That's what they really are, man. And those are ultimately what the Lord is going to return in and deliver his elect, man. And those so-called UFOs, they call them, right? And I'm actually go to a few precepts just expounding on that as well, right? This is Acts chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse 9. And it said, and when he had spoken these things while they beheld, he was taken up, right? And the cloud received him out of their sight. See, in this instance, it is called a cloud, right? Which is the chariot of Israel. That's what our Lord Yahushua was ultimately beamed up into, right? Before he, finished talking with the apostles, right? He was beamed up in the chariot, man, and it says verse 10, and while they looked steadfastly towards heaven as he went up, right? That's the disciples, because ultimately they were astonished, man, seeing the Lord being beamed up in that type of way, to the human eyes, that's going to be, a sight to see, man, and it says, and behold, two men took by them in white apparel, right? These were the angels. And verse 11, it said, which also said, ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven, right? They was looking up because they seen the Lord get beamed up in the so-called UFO. So they were astonished, man. Like they were just amazed, like, dang, like, that's really a sight to see, man. Especially with these human eyes, man, because most humans' minds cannot fathom seeing something like that, man, because a lot of these people, they tend to think these things are not real, man. But in the near future, a lot of these people are going to start seeing more sightings of the chariots, man. And ultimately, we know that's what the Lord is coming in to deliver his elect, man, and to render forth a lot of judgment, upon these people in the latter times. All right. So I'm going to finish reading. It says, this same Yahushua, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven, right? So that's another precept proving that the same way the Lord left is how he's going to return, which is via going to be through the chariots of Israel, man, so-called UFOs, which is what it is that you see these government officials and all of these other different people ultimately coming out with footage of, man, because the Lord is ultimately circling around this world with his chariots, man. It tells you that in Proverbs 15:3. It said, behold, The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding both good and evil. The Lord's eyes are his chariots, man, the angels, right? And they're everywhere, man, seeing everything, you know, watching certain brothers, watching the wicked, watching all of these different people out here. And they're actually tallying up information, man. They're watching what everybody is doing, man. So nobody is getting away with nothing, man. Yahweh Shem Yahushua seeing all things that is being done in this earth, man, via the chariots, right? And I'm actually go to a precept, you know, just touching on that. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 23. Verse 19, and it says, such a man only feareth, right, the eyes of men, and knoweth not that the eyes of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, right? Beholding all the ways of men and considering the most secret parts, which that goes into the chariots, man, which are watching the people day in and day out. These same so-called UFOs that these people around the world are seeing, man, right? And I'm going to go to another precept, right, just proving that the Lord is ultimately going to return in one of those said chariots, right, to deliver his elect and also to bring forth a lot of judgment upon the wicked people that are ultimately going to be here in the times when he makes his second coming, right? This is Revelation chapter 1, verse 7. And it says, behold, he, right, which is our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, right, cometh with clouds, right, which are the chariots of Israel, right, the so-called UFOs. And every eye shall see him, right? And they also which pierced him, right? Which is going into reincarnation, which are the same people that were back in the times when the Lord was crucified 2,000 plus years ago and hung on the cross, the tree, right? Those are the same people that are back, right? And it says, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him, even so, amen, right? So, yeah, we're going to get into this video now, and we're going to basically listen to what it is that they're talking about. And I'm going to get a few more precepts, and Lord's willing to be edifying. But yeah, I'm going to get into this video real quickly. But before I start it, I want to say fair use. Under the 1976 Copyright Act, you know, not getting paid for this video. This is only for educational purposes only, right?
Flying object shaped like a disc caught on military camera and now confirmed by the Pentagon. The exclusive footage obtained and analyzed by investigative journalist Jeremy Corbell, who is the leader in this space. He is the co-host of the Weaponized podcast. Jeremy, welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. It's the duty of journalism to investigate the unexplained, not explain the uninvestigated. That's what we're trying to do with this clip. Quick correction. Pentagon didn't confirm this one yet as being military filmed. They should, because it is, like they have other videos that George Knapp and I have obtained and released. I am waiting to see if they're going to be honest with the American public.
Okay, so let's talk about this particular video.
Yeah.
So this is actually from 2020, right?
Right.
But it's just being released now. Why is that?
Yeah, because it takes a while. When George Knapp and I receive information, it takes a while just to vet the basics. Is this a military filmed piece of footage? Did they designate it UAP, which we all know now means UFO? And it took us a while to confirm that, and it's 100% confirmed. I'm waiting for our government to admit to it. In the intelligence community, this piece of footage has been studied since 2020.
So what is it? What do we think we're looking at here?
That is above my pay grade. I don't know exactly what we're looking at, but what it looks like to me, the three things that stick out and why I thought it was worthy of public discourse, right? So one is the shape. We all talk about UAP or UFOs, but this looks like the movie Nope. If you've seen that Jordan Peele movie, it looks like a disc, but I didn't name it a disc. Our intelligence agencies labeled it disc. In fact, they said UAP navigating through clouds. That's what was with the file. So
Right, and you hear what they said. They said clouds, because as I read in the scriptures earlier, that's actually what they go by in the scriptures. But we know that those are the chariots of Israel, which is what they're ignorantly calling UFOs, right?
That's what we're seeing according to them. The other thing is the movement. It was interesting. I want to know if it actually moves the way it does, make an abrupt turn. and there's no heat signature of traditional propulsion if it is indeed a craft.
And that's what's perhaps most important, the heat signature. Why is that so important?
Right, because all traditional propulsion as we know it will throw something out the back to move forward. It's kind of like rockets to roller skates. You got everything has a reaction, action kind of thing. With this, we're not seeing it, and it's in a thermal signature. So a lot of the footage that you gain from the military that they label UAP, you have unique characteristics of like lack of signature.
Okay, so there's a lot of people that will see this and say, should I be worried about my safety? What is this thing doing, right? What do we think that it's doing?
I don't know, and that's...
And they should be worried about their safety, you know, because we know ultimately that when these chariots do make their arrival in the second returning of our Lord Yahushua, that these chariots are going to be getting busy, man, right along with those nuclear ICBM missiles that's ultimately going to be shot over here to America during the Third World War. These chariots are also going to be, you know, bringing forth and rendering a lot of judgment upon people, man. So that's really what they're going to be doing in these times that we're coming into, you know. And I'm going to actually go to a precept just to prove that, right? This is Isaiah chapter 66, and I'm going to start at verse 15. It said, "For behold, the Lord, right, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, will come with fire, and with his chariots, right, which are these so-called UFOs that these people are trying to label them as, right, like a whirlwind to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire," man, right? Because that's what those chariots are going to be emitting out of their vehicles, man, which are going to be those heavenly flames that are going to be shooting out upon the wicked, man, when the Lord ultimately makes his return. They're going to beam up the elect, and then they're going to render forth judgment, right? And this is verse 16. It says, "For by fire," right, which is going to come out of the chariots, "and by his sword will the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many," man, because that's what the Lord is coming back to do, you know. He's not coming back to shake hands and be nice with people and things of that nature. No, he's coming back to put a lot of people to death, man, you know, and to deliver his elect. Lord's will, we be at that number, right? And I'm actually go to another precept just touching on that, you know. This is St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. And it said, "And then shall appear the Son of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn," right? People are going to be afraid when the Lord makes his return. You know, people are going to be mourning. They're going to be in a pitiful case. People are not going to know what to do. They're going to be bugging out, you know, all types of different things, you know, mainly the wicked of our people, man, and these other heathens. They're going to mourn because they're going to know that their judgment is coming once they see the Lord crack those clouds, man. Right. And it said, "And they shall see the Son of Man," right, Lord Yahushua, "coming in the clouds," right, the so-called UFOs of heaven with power and great glory, man. Right. And those chariots, like I said, you know, he's going to deliver the elect of the nation of Israel, the 1/3 remnant. And he's going to be rendering anger and fury upon the rest of the people that are down here, man, via the chariots and those ICBM missiles, man. You know, that's why it tells you that how it's going to be for those that have ultimately fought against the Lord's people, how they're going to melt away and why they stand and things of that nature, roughly paraphrasing. I'm going to get that precept too. That's Zechariah chapter 14. And I'm going to start at verse 12. And it said, "And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, will smite all the people," right, "that have fought against Jerusalem," which is a people before as a place. Mainly, you know, the people that have fought against the Lord's elect, you know, the 2/3 of our people, these other heathen nations, right? This is what the Lord is going to do to them, right? It said, "Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongues shall consume away in their mouth," right? And that's going to be done through the chariots, man. And also those ICBM nuclear missiles, which is what the Lord is going to use to render and bring forth his judgment, right? It tells you that in Revelations 14:9 to bring forth his indignation, which is his righteous anger upon these people, man, that are not of that remnant, right? They're going to be destroyed, man. And that's what ultimately these chariots are going to do. That's why you see them, you know, making themselves more known now in this present time, because it's getting closer and closer to that time where, hey, the Lord is about to make his second return, man. So that's what all of these things in which it is that we see ultimately occurring is leading up towards, man. And that's what the so-called government is not going to tell these people, man, because the only people that ultimately know these things are the men of the Lord and the women that are sincere, who the Lord is ultimately supping with and dealing with. Only we know what time and season that we're living in and knowing what these things truly are, man. These people have no idea what's going on, you know, and that's because the Lord is not dealing with them, man, you know.
That's being investigated a lot by online sleuths now too. But you have to figure out The UAP, UFO thing, it's been around for a long time. This is nothing new. Your own government, our government, has admitted that UAP, let's just say UFOs, are real. There are craft of unknown origin. They outpace, outmaneuver, and outperform anything that we know can be made. So with that said, what is it doing? I have no clue.
Right? Because as he just said, they can outmaneuver and, you know, more advanced than anything in which it is that these Edomites and these other heathens possess, is because they're from the fourth dimension, man. They're from the heavens, man. These are not, you know, worldly aircrafts, man, that these people ultimately believe that they are. These are from the heaven, man. Right?
So do we think that there are other ones like this? Have we seen similar videos to this?
You might not have seen similar videos to this. I have seen similar videos to this, and I'm hoping the public will be able to see those too.
Like a significant number of them?
I would definitely call it significant.
Okay. So, and part of that is Congress has become more involved in this, in part thanks to you. They're talking to you. To talk about what your conversations have been like with Congress and how you're working with them to try to get people to come forward.
I'm going to cut to brass tacks here. I have 3 or more first-hand direct whistleblowers to the UAP thing from within government. We're talking agencies and intelligence that have and will put their lives on the line to tell the American public under oath in an open congressional hearing what they know about the cover-up of the UFO reality. That is fact, and I have alerted Congress to it. There has been some vetting that is done, and we have a chance to have another UFO hearing where people will, for the first time, hear from first-hand, hands-on whistleblowers. Now, there have been others. Commander David Fravor, he came and testified about chasing a UFO for the United States military, but I'm talking about high-quality witnesses.
So you're saying right now that they want to come forward, but somebody in government is preventing them from coming forward?
There have been threats, medical malpractice, there have been lies, you have all sorts of things that have happened to these people who are not yet public.
Right. So we basically got a gist of what it is he's talking about. You know, basically a lot of people know that these are, you know, the chariots, man. You know, of course they call them UFOs, but us believers of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, we know what they are, man. You know, so I'm going to go to another precept, you know, just proving that this just proves more and more that we're getting closer to the return of the Lord, man, and that we're in the latter days, man. We're in the end of this place, and this place, as these people know it, is about to soon come to its end, man. You know, that's why we're seeing these chariots more and more. They're showing themselves even more because we're getting closer to that time, you know. So this is St. Luke chapter 21, right? And I'm going to start at verse, you know, I'm going to start at verse I'm going to start at verse 11. I'm going to go straight to the point, right? And it says, and great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, right? Which is, we see all of these things ultimately occurring now, right? And famines and pestilences and fearful sights, right? And great signs shall there be from heaven, right? And when you look up fearful sights, man, that's going into people seeing these chariots, man. You know, people seeing the chariots of Israel ultimately in the sky, man. That's what a lot of these people are seeing. Those are those fearful sights in which it is the Lord said that a lot of people will be seeing in the latter days, man, right? Because all of these tokens in which it is he gave us are the things in which he said will be occurring before he ultimately makes his second return, right? And those are the chariots in which it is that these people are ultimately seeing, you know. Those fearful sights, man, those things in which it is they cannot understand, right? But us, brothers and sisters of the hopeful elect, we have the eyesight through the Holy Spirit. The Lord have given us the understanding of knowing what these things are, which are chariots, you know, and who are inhabiting, which are the angels of the Lord, man, you know. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say with today's video. You know, Lord's willing, I pray it be edifying to you, brothers and sisters that come across it. Till the next time, I'm going to say shalom to the elect.